Halito, and welcome to Native Chalk Talk, a podcast by natives for all. Here we're keeping our native ancestors' stories and history alive while also sharing with you our native cultures, traditions, and more. I'm Rachel Youngman, a Choctaw originally from Anadarko, Oklahoma. I hope you'll enjoy this journey with me as we learn from our Native American guests. And stay tuned for the end of each episode where we'll talk about some great ways to support Native causes and or Native-owned businesses. Let's get started. But first, a word from our sponsor.
The Choctaw Nation has always provided a foundation upon which a future can be built. From our home in southeast Oklahoma to a bingo hall that grew to be one of the largest casinos in the world. Today's summer school programs lay the groundwork for a love of learning. Small business programs support local economies. And with over 10,000 jobs created, Choctaw offers financial stability to tribal members and our neighbors. Together we build success, because together we're more.
I'm coming to you today from the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma, headquartered in Durant, Oklahoma, with my guest Robert Baker, who contributes to our Choctaw language department on a daily basis. My sister and I take online Choctaw classes through the tribe, so when I met Robert, I thought it was great to visit with someone who's contributing to the preservation of our language. Robert, Yakoke, for joining me today.
Oh, me. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. So, Robert, where did you grow up?
I grew up in McCurtain County, Idabel, Broken Bow, Wright City, and surrounding communities and stuff
Choctaw
like that.
country.
Yes, it is. Beautiful. And I graduated Broken Bow High School in 93. And so, McCurtain County is a majority where I grew up.
Well, you're so lucky. It's a beautiful area,
yeah.
Especially in Broken Bow. So definitely lots of Okie Choctaw country there. And you currently live in Bokchito, Oklahoma. Tell us more about the town.
Bokchito, if you blink, you're going to miss it. I think it has about 650 people, about 15 or 13 miles east of where we're at Durant right now.
Right.
And Bokchito, it actually means, is a Choctaw word for big river. But yeah, I mean, I've only lived there for 4 or 5 years now, so it's a nice quiet town and stuff like that.
And it's a bit historical, right? The Choctaw came to Bokchito when they came over during the removal on the Trail of Tears into Indian Territory, which is now the state of Oklahoma. And then the Armstrong Academy, I noticed, was established there in 1844. And I think this topic deserves a quick mention, especially for those studying Choctaw history. The Armstrong Academy and Bokchito are an important part of our history. The school was for Choctaw boys in the Pushmataha district of the Choctaw Nation. And William Armstrong was a Choctaw Indian agent, so that's who it was named after. And the reason it was selected in the location had to do with a grist mill they wanted to run, and they could draw water from a fresh water spring that was located near there. So it was a fairly large school at the time, right?
I think in 1859, I think there were about 100 students.
Oh, wow. A Choctaw Presbyterian missionary named Allen Wright served as the principal instructor in 1855 and 1856, and he actually later became chief, so I thought that was interesting. But the school closed in 1861 when the Civil War began, and at that time, Confederates who were allied with the Choctaw Council began to use the building as a hospital. And the council also met there in 1863, which was the same year that the Choctaw capital, called Choctawtamaha, was transferred to Bokchito. The Choctaw, Creek, Seminole, Cherokee, and Chickasaw Indian Territory delegates met in the building to plan war strategy with the Confederates, who had promised the tribes that they would support a Native American state. Imagine that. Then in 1883, the Choctaw Nation capital was moved to Tushkahoma. By the way, the Choctaw Nation headquarters was moved several times over the years, the current location being in Durant, Oklahoma, where we are today. Also in that year, the Armstrong Academy was opened to orphan Choctaw boys. And then in 1921, it was destroyed by a fire. The only thing remaining is a cemetery. Have you seen that cemetery, by the way?
I haven't been by there yet. I mean, it's just right outside of town, and I think it's Armstrong Academy Road, just outside of on Highway 22, heading toward Caddo, I think.
Oh, I bet that would be interesting to see. I'm going to be driving through there tomorrow. Maybe I should.
Yeah, I think I'll probably go take a look sometime.
Yeah, hopefully I've inspired you to go check it out. And isn't that funny? I mean, some people can live in, say, California and never go see the Hearst Castle. I mean, there's always that scenario where it's like in your backyard, but never take time to see it. But.
Yeah, next week I'm taking some time off, and we're going to go to the Spiral Mountains.
Oh, cool!
And I've never been there.
I haven't either.
And they have these autumn equinox walks. They do that like Wednesday, like 3 times a day.
Yeah.
You know, because it's just that time of year and stuff like that. So
right.
I think we're going to go do that and then maybe visit my daughter up in Norman. So.
Oh, nice. That sounds like the perfect time. You off for a week?
Just a few days.
Yeah.
I haven't got to do some work and stuff.
Oh, sure. I know. And you're in IT, so it's not like you can ever really get away, probably. But,
yeah.
Well, my sister and I were passing through Bokchito the other day on our way to Antlers, Oklahoma, and we love the name because it's a phrase we use a lot in the Choctaw language classes when we're practicing phrases. So it's a pretty town, but as you said, blink as you're driving through and you'll miss it. But I'd love to hear more about your family. Your grandma and grandpa spoke Choctaw fluently, correct?
Yes. Mafo micha pukni tatukulukat makalaho nampli bikato. Grandmother and grandfather, they both spoke only Choctaw. I mean, in the home and stuff like that. You know, it was just immersed. I was just immersed in it. You know, the breakfast table, the dinner table, everywhere.
It's just part of your everyday life.
You know, and I wish I had picked up more when I was younger and stuff like that. I think a couple of times, Grandma did sit down with me and stuff, and I just asked her things. You know, it's like, what does this mean? If I wanted to say this, and that's about as far as it went.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, they were talk back and forth, and sometimes you can only recognize that they're talking about you when you hear your name or like an English word or something like that. And then your ears perk up.
Yeah.
I heard my name.
Wait, are they talking about me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Isn't it true, though? We all wish we could go back in time and listen to their stories or learn the language. And so did your mom and dad, did they speak Choctaw as well?
They understood it, and they knew words and stuff like that, but, you know, they just weren't real fluent in it, but they understand everything that, you know, was said and stuff. So, but, no, they didn't speak it, but, you know, they know everything, all the words and stuff like that. They knew. I mean, whenever somebody would talk to them, you know, they know what was being said, but no, they didn't talk it.
And why do you think it is that their parents didn't teach the language to them, your parents?
I think it has to do with the schools, the boarding schools and stuff like that. They seen how much harder it was for them to learn English and not speak Choctaw and stuff like that. So I think it was that. And that's a pretty common story that you hear, you know, all through Indian country is, you know, they tried to take our language away and stuff like that. So I think their mindset, you know, let's not give our kids, they need a fair chance in life. And maybe they thought Choctaw didn't give them that.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah. It's really sad, though.
Yeah, it is.
And you know, it's interesting because for those of us who didn't grow up hearing the language very much and may not be fluent in it, we're only a couple generations away from those who did speak Choctaw. That's not that far back. I mean, my great-great-grandmother spoke the language and spoke very little English, and that's not really that far back. So your grandparents, you mentioned, both went to native boarding schools, correct?
Yeah, my grandpa, I think he went to Goodland, and I can't remember. Grandma, she went to either Chilocco or Wheelock.
Okay.
I can't remember which one, though.
Yeah. I think you're honoring them by speaking the language. And what's great now, though, is that you are learning the language and you're even close to it in your role here at the Choctaw Nation. Tell us more about what you do in your department.
Well, in my department, I'm a IT assistant. We have an email lesson of the day, and then we also have a Facebook page where I put the lessons on there and stuff. Also, I substitute teach, you know, either the high school classes or Southeastern. Install, you know, Polycom equipment because, you know, we we broadcast from here to, 40 schools in
wow.
the 10 and a half counties and stuff. And so sometimes we have to deploy monitors, Polycom equipment, all the technical stuff,
Yeah.
Maintain department vehicles. It's just, whatever they throw at me, I'll do it. But
Totally.
yeah, it's just a little bit of everything. I train sometimes with the first language speaker. I got to do that to keep my chops up.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
So you're constantly being trained so you can help other people
right.
and yourself.
And I think as a teacher, it's important that you are, fluent in the language. I think it just strengthens your teaching ability.
Agreed, so much. And you mentioned you put email lessons of the day out there, so I always love receiving those in my email. So thanks for sending those out.
Yeah, do you follow us on Facebook?
I do.
Okay. Yeah,
absolutely.
I think it's the same lesson and stuff, But.
Yeah, but it's nice to, I don't have time to look at it every day, but when I do, it's a good little reminder and pick me up. And you mentioned to me one time, you said it's the best environment here to foster the Choctaw language as a second language. I mean, so true.
Yeah, aside from being immersed, growing up in a family, a household with Choctaw speakers and stuff like this, or stuff like that, excuse me. But, right here, as a second language learner, speaker, we can, go to the first language speaker and practice, does this sound right? Do you understand me? And stuff like that, and if they don't get you, if they don't understand you, they'll look at you like, with the one eye closed, and then, she may ask, what are you saying? Tell me in English what you're saying.
Right, just translate this for me.
But, I think right here in this department is probably the best place. You have so much patience with us and stuff like that, and sometimes you won't get that out, in the general public, so. But I think it's a great place to learn right here.
Agreed, very much. Yeah, when you were talking about having to go to someone who's fluent in Choctaw and say, does this sound right to you? Does this work? Miss Lily in our class last night, she said that she was reading a poem that someone had put into Choctaw, and they brought it to her saying, is this correct? And in it is talking about birds or something, and then the word was say, I saw the bird or something, but the word saw. But because it was I see something, but then he tried to translate it to past tense. It didn't quite work out, and it ended up being the noun saw, like I'm going to saw a log.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I thought that was interesting. It's like, we could look in a dictionary and see the word saw, thinking, okay, that's a past tense version of see, but yeah, we have to really be careful about all those conjugations and translations and past tense, present tense. But anyway, okay, so I know that you put you mentioned to me you wrote a story in class, right?
Yeah, this was from a conversational class that I was in, and I think we had to write something for the graduation night and stuff like that, and so I couldn't think of anything to write, and this is just a story from when we lived in McCurtain County. I think we went to we were there with the kids and stuff like that, and I think we had been at the river and stuff like that. But I'll read this. I'll read you the story.
Yeah, please do. Okay.
All right.
And what's it called?
Shawe Hasimbish Iksho. No Tail Raccoon.
Ah.
Okay. Nita I Pinsatoka. Nana Noa no Lisabana. Himona ma. Sioshitikat Utta ma. Glover Bok Ilith Kolito. Chulai Ayoshta. I Oshta Mak Chulai Ayoshta Mak Foka took Sammy. Ravenut P Hashi Achafa took Aroko. Iti Hishi Pinsa Hila Ho in Topa Osi Ibolito. Akma Amalanakni yet Nani Hoklet Antaho Bokma I Yopito. Pimalimpa I Hopona Chiho Loak Ikbilito. Input il isakmat, pi choka pilla ilaskolito. Nane chaha pakna imayakat, hopaki pit I pinsa hilato. Nanat hina apotaka noat ayaho, I tokloka I pinsato. Yama Yama Ishpinsaha, Panakolito, Tracy at Show Hasim Bashik Show Achito. Yokpali fi nakat yaya li nahato. Kiyo Yamat Nita Achilito. Makala.
Yay!
And
I could barely understand parts of it. Not because of you, but because of me.
right. And you want me to do it in English?
Yes,
okay,
please.
All
Let's
right.
hear the story.
So this is a story I want to tell when we saw a bear. One time when my daughter was born, we went to Glover River. I believe it was about July 4th because Raven was just a month old. We put her in her playpen so she could see the leaves. And so my son fished and we swam in the river. I built a fire to cook her food. After we ate, we headed toward a house. We were on top of a mountain and we could see a long ways. We both saw something walking beside the road. Did you see that? I asked. Yes, it's a no-tail raccoon, Tracy said. I laughed so hard I almost cried.
Yeah.
No, it's a bear, I said. The end.
That is awesome. It's a no-tail raccoon.
Well,
That's so cute.
The reason she said that because I think that's when the black bears were starting to come back to the southeastern part of the state. And the way, because you can see the way a raccoon, she said it walks like a raccoon and it's going across the road. And she's like, and she couldn't process it fast enough.
It's a no-tail raccoon.
Yeah, no-tail raccoon. And I looked and I said, no, that's a bear. Because I think maybe that was the first time I'd ever seen a bear.
Yeah.
And then maybe her too, I think, So
wow.
We couldn't process it. I was like, you see that? And I think went across, that's a no-tail raccoon.
I love that. That's a great story.
But, yeah, I think it needs to be more developed. And I think when I wrote this, I was still, in the beginning of trying to put my grammar together. And I
know, that's hard.
Yeah.
It's like math in a way.
Mm-hmm.
You do one thing wrong and it could be all wrong.
But, yeah, I've got a couple more stories because I stayed in that class 4 or 5 years and stuff. So every year we had to.
That's what I'm doing with this beginner's class. I'm literally just going to take the same class. This is my second year of beginner's class because I just don't want to move forward until I really feel like I have it.
Yeah, and that's how, when I started taking that conversational class, I think they didn't offer like phase 2 or something like that, which I had taken phase 1 with another community teacher. Mm-hmm. And then they started this conversational class, and I was kind of I was kind of scared. I said, "Oh, that's going to be way over my head." I said, "I'm not going to be able to stay afloat and stuff like that." And I talked with one of the teachers, and he said, "You should do fine and stuff." He said, "We're not going to be just going 90 to nothing." He said, "We're going to have to teach you and stuff like that." And so my wife took the class with me too.
Yeah.
And so she learned quite a bit and stuff like that, and she was getting pretty good and stuff. So, but now she's taking another online class at Southeastern.
Oh, she is?
Yeah.
But a Choctaw class?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
What's so nice though that y'all can speak to each other in the language.
Yeah, we're trying and stuff like that. I try with the little one. Mm-hmm. Commands, stuff like that. Just at the dinner table is where you get a lot of vocabulary and stuff like that. As you got your food, you got your plate. It's everywhere.
Well, it's such a gift to give our kids when we can help them know that, especially the language of our tribe. I mean, that's a huge deal. I try to speak to my husband on occasion, and he's like, "That's amazing," and I'm like, "I totally messed it up," and he has no idea. Woohoo, thanks, honey. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think that sometimes that happens a lot. I think.
Well, thanks for sharing. That was fun. So we talked about Armstrong Academy earlier, and quite a few of the Choctaw Code Talkers originally went to Armstrong. And your great-grandpa did not attend Armstrong, but he was a code talker in World War I, right along with those students, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's right.
And what was his name?
Ben Carterby was my, we call that Bokchito, is a great-grandfather. So.
Yeah. Well, for those who haven't heard of the code talkers, during World Wars I and II, Native Americans were utilized to send coded messages in their language that the enemies were unable to decipher. And the Choctaws were the first to do so. Please remember that, followed by the other tribes as well. We were first. They truly are heroes. So how interesting is it that your great-grandpa was a code talker? And what I think is interesting, too, about the code talkers is that in the Armstrong Academy, just as in many other Native boarding schools, they weren't allowed to speak their language. And yet, here they used their language and became unsung heroes. I say unsung because while most of them were alive, they weren't allowed to speak of their heroic deeds in the war. And most of their family members never even knew about the significant contribution due to the confidentiality of the services that they provided. So tell us more about your great-grandpa.
Well, I mean, I never met him and stuff, and I didn't even know he was a code talker until I was, maybe it had to be mid-20s, because, they were sworn to secrecy, because they didn't know if they would have to do that again until like World War II, but none of them ever talked about it and stuff. And my grandpa, he never said anything, and, family never said anything about it. It's just one of them things that you just know, or you find out when you're older. It's like, oh, wow, that's so cool. I didn't know that.
Neat.
So.
Puts your names on the map, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And his name is on one of those bridges out there, right?
I'm trying to remember where it is. I think it's near Smithville, maybe up in that area, I think.
Yeah, it's a ways away from here. It's not very close.
Right.
Because I went and looked it up thinking I could maybe go out there and take a photo of it, but it's like 2 hours away or something.
Yeah, I'll probably head in that direction on next week, I guess.
Oh, so if you get a photo.
We'll try.
It's definitely something to be proud of. And the bridge you're talking about is one of several in Oklahoma named for 19 Choctaw code talkers. I've taken photos here and there of the bridges with these heroes' names on them, but I haven't seen your grandpa's yet, as mentioned. But now, Nuchi Nashoba is the Choctaw Code Talkers Association president. Is Nuchi related to you?
Yes, she's my cousin.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So when Miss Nashoba, she was quoted in BBC Magazine in 2014 when talking about Ben, that he, quote, was one of the men used in the original test to send a message on the Western Front. So how amazing is that? He was one of the first to send a code in Choctaw that the enemy wouldn't be able to decipher. I thought that was amazing. So I wanted to learn more about your great-grandpa, so I did some digging, and here's a quote from the Texas Military Forces Museum website, and I'll be sure to post their link on my Native Choctaw Facebook page. Code talker Ben Carterby, born in 1892 at Baptiste, is that how we say it?
Yeah, Baptiste.
Okay, Baptiste, the son of Iban and Tabol Carterby, preferred, like most combat veterans, to remember his humble beginnings rather than his war experiences. Recalling that his grandparents had removed from Mississippi to locate the Carterby home place in the woods of the Ouachita Mountains, the quiet hero chose to talk about the simple pleasures of life rather than the violence of war. Often reminiscing about his family, he recalled there was plenty to eat. The country was filled with deer and wild game, and the creeks and river full of fish. The 5 acres owned by the Carterbys enabled them to raise enough corn to live on, along with a large vegetable garden. In his later years, he liked to remember the times passed gathering onions, tying them together, and hanging them in the house for use. He recalled that his family and most of his neighbors raised a few cattle, hogs, and ponies. The animals were allowed to roam freely, taking care of themselves. They were not fed or watered and sometimes went wild, making it difficult to herd them in for spring branding, but their owners were never out any expense on their care. He recalled that his mother made all the family clothing with a spinning wheel and a weaver. She wove all the material at home, making shirts, pants, and dresses, all sewn from heavy materials that lasted a long time and was warm in the winter.
Self-efficient.
Very much so. Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of us that could do that now if we had to.
Yeah, I was watching a documentary and stuff, and I'm like, some of the technology that we can't even do any of that stuff anymore,
And we wouldn't know how to fix the technology if it broke, so.
Yeah, I think I was looking at, it was something like a bark lodge house. How do you get that bark off that tree without going, breaking and stuff like that. It's just amazing to me.
Wow. I know, absolutely. Pretty impressive. These were the memories of a soldier. Carterby embraced the unpretentious, quiet existence of an ordinary man in private life. Determined not to remember the war and the fighting, he purposely avoided discussions and nostalgic memories of the frightening experiences of war, a common thread among all veterans. And isn't this the way it goes? It's often a challenge to get our elders to speak about their lives or their time in the service, and I can respect that, but this was still an interesting snapshot of his life, even if it was just a little bit. So although you didn't know much about your great-grandpa, I hope we're honoring him today by keeping his memory and contributions alive. We talked earlier about Tuskahoma once being the Choctaw Nation capital. Typically every year, well, minus when COVID is a problem like this year, there's the Labor Day Festival at Tuskahoma, which has stickball tournaments, gourd, and other dances, concerts, arts and crafts, the Choctaw Princess Pageant, buffalo tours, quilting demonstrations, and more. I was going to attend this year and was bummed that it had to be canceled due to the pandemic, so that was a bummer. But anyway, you have some fond memories from Tuskahoma, right?
Yeah, I mean, I used to go on a Sunday, and that's when they had the stickball exhibition, and then they'd have the social dancing and stuff like that. So that I always look forward to that all year, because I knew at Tuskahoma on Sunday I could probably even quote the time, like 10:30 or something, I was going to be there to play stickball and stuff like that. So
fun.
I mean, I always made it a point to be there. Now I'm there because I have to be there because of work.
Yeah.
But I still enjoy it. It's not work at all.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like work.
Wow. And the thing about it is this, my youngest son, he'll be 2 in October, and he's yet to attend Tuskahoma.
So, oh, really?
Yeah.
It's time. I know, because of COVID, right? Oh, shoot. Well, for our listeners, stickball is the Native American game from which lacrosse was formed, where 2 teams have sticks with cupped baskets on the ends and a tawa or a ball, and they attempt to hit a post with the ball. Back in the day, some tribes would use it as a means to settle a dispute or to make a decision. So there's a photo out there with Sidney White, right? Is it your grandpa?
Yes, John.
Yeah, so John has a picture with stickball maker. No, stick maker. He's a stick maker, isn't he? Not a stickball maker.
Right. He's
I'm going to start that whole thing over.
Okay.
Okay. There's a photo out there of your grandpa with the great stick maker for stickball, Sidney White, right?
Yes, my grandpa, John Baker.
That's awesome. Do you have that photo?
I don't have that photo. I think one of my cousins has sent it to me, and I don't know where he found that. You know, and like you said, they didn't talk about, their life, because I never knew he played stickball until I seen that picture and stuff like that. And so that was it's a cool picture. It was a shock and stuff like that.
Like, Grandpa, that's Sidney White.
Yeah, and of course he's like, oh, that's just Sidney,
Wow.
But yeah, so he had, it was a surprise to find out that he played, and then I seen it. Sidney White, because I looked at the sticks at first, and the picture is really bad, it's blurry, but you could tell, their signature Sidney White sticks.
Yeah.
He has his own style, I guess, and stuff.
Wow. So Sidney White was born in 1889 and was famous for his incredible stick-making abilities for the game of stickball. It sounds like there are very few of his sticks remaining. Have you seen a pair?
There's a pair hanging on the wall down the hall.
Oh, nice.
In Lily's room.
Miss Lily's office? Oh, I'm so jealous. So, go ahead.
I think there was I think they had a pair of sticks, Sidney White sticks at a stickball camp this past year. I think one of the kids had brought it and stuff like that, and so one of the coaches were looking at it, and they I think those are Sidney White sticks. They said, let me see those. And so they took them, and then they gave gave her another pair, and I guess they told her, they were Sidney White sticks. So.
Oh, wow. That's so neat.
You don't want to play with these. Put these away.
Let's put these away. Do not touch. So at Tuskahoma at the Choctaw Nation Capitol Museum hangs a pair of his sticks as well. So, by the way, last time my sister Stacy and I were there, she brought this... last time my sister Stacy and I were there at Tuskahoma, she bought this amazing Pendleton blanket that has sticks as the pattern on it. It's beautiful. And by the way, I also thought it was funny that we just passed by the same exact Pendleton blanket here in the office. That's why I pointed it out. I was like, that's a Pendleton blanket. But I'll post a photo of it on my Native Chalk Talk Facebook page. I think they had one last one hanging on the wall at Tuskahoma, so feel free, listeners, to go there and fight over it. Maybe you can play a game of stickball to settle the dispute over it. Now, you've got a kid that's going to OU and a 1-year-old too, God bless ya. Does your son know how to play stickball?
No, he's not He's only 2, so I mean,
Yeah.
I have his sticks for him and stuff like that. So he'll pick it up in no time.
Never too early to learn. You have little bitty tiny sticks for him. That'd be so cute.
I think this past summer went to a World Series of stickball tournament in Mississippi, and so we went to a couple of pawn shops and I found a baby pair for him.
Oh, really? So, that's so cute.
But now my other son, the oldest, is he's 24 and he works at the cultural center, and so.
Oh wow.
I think one of the pictures I sent you is him signing his letter of intent to play lacrosse at St. Greg's.
Wow, so cool.
Yeah, but he never did take the field. He was finishing up his AITs for the military and stuff like that.
Oh, sure.
And so by the time he was free, I think they had closed the school down. So
no.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's so frustrating. That's weird how, COVID has changed everything.
Yeah.
But you guys went to New Orleans once to participate in something very interesting together. Why don't you share more about that?
Well, we went to New Orleans to reenact in the Battle of New Orleans for the War of 1812, and this was through the recognizing our roots movement, I guess. And so I think we went maybe 2 or 3 years, and I know we were there for the 200th anniversary.
Cool.
And that is my daughter I guess she's the poster child for that campaign, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, for that campaign.
That's your daughter?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
So the photo I'm going to put on the Facebook page is a picture of his daughter with an American flag behind it, or what kind of flag is that?
I guess that's an early American flag, I guess.
That's amazing. I didn't realize that was your daughter.
Yeah, that's cool. I thought it was neat, so.
Yeah. Wow. So the Biskinik is our Choctaw paper that we tribal members receive. So I'd like to read out of the February 2015 edition of the Choctaw Contribution in the War of 1812. In late December 1814, more than 11,000 British troops massed in coastal Louisiana. Their intent was to capture the town of New Orleans and force an end to the War of 1812. A group of 50 or 60 Choctaws under Pierre Uzan left Pensacola and joined the impending battle under Andrew Jackson. For a while, the Choctaws made patrols to prevent British incursions into the American line. As the British force pushed closer to New Orleans, the Choctaws' position was on the extreme left of the American line at the edge of a swamp. On December 28th, a party of 200 Tennessee riflemen under Captain Canville entered the swamp and came upon a British force supported by 2 companies. In the skirmish, the British killed Captain Canville and several men. Suddenly, withering rifle fire began from the British rear. It was the Choctaws. They could not be seen, but their effect was devastating. The Choctaw contingent, much smaller than the American force, inflicted more than half of the casualties on the British in that engagement. After that, the Choctaws were constantly engaged day and night in skirmishes with the British sentries in the area. One Choctaw man named Poindexter killed 5 British pickets in 3 nights. Ultimately, the Americans won the Battle of New Orleans with very few casualties. The small Choctaw force played a significant role by constantly harassing the British. The battle essentially ended the War of 1812. The Choctaws who fought in it called the engagement Balbaha Itibi, literally foreign language speaking battle, Hudson, 1932, after the old Choctaw name for the Mississippi River. In December 1815, Mississippi territorial government gave special recognition to Pushmataha and other Choctaw leaders for their efforts in protecting Anglo settlements in the Creek War. Just 14 years later, Mississippi, which had by then been admitted to the Union, passed resolutions that declared Choctaw lands state property and terminated Choctaw sovereignty, thereby making Choctaw communities subject to the state's laws and possible attack by the militia. In 1830, Andrew Jackson, who had called on and received Choctaw aid when he needed it most, signed the Indian Removal Act. The same year, he sent government agents into Choctaw country who threatened the Choctaw people with unprovoked military action by the United States if they did not agree to relinquish their homeland. Pretty damn sad, isn't it? The Choctaw assisted in defeat, and they were later rewarded by being stripped of their land. So, what was it like to be part of that reenactment?
It was really nice, There was a couple of points in here that I want to cover. But I think, and this was in Jackson's notes, I think that Poindexter had, I think he had shot somebody in the face and then had reloaded and then shot like two face shots.
Whoa.
Yeah, so they were really, really good at, the black powder.
Yeah.
And I think the war cries of the Choctaw warriors, I think that terrified, the British soldiers and stuff like that.
Wow.
And so, I mean, we fought different, and, they just lined up in the field, and, we're guerrilla fighters. We're hanging out in the swamp all day, until,
right.
until the night comes. Then
Yeah. Used to that Mississippi terrain and swamps and all that.
But yeah, it was really fun. I mean, we met some real nice people. We met some Houma Choctaws and stuff like that. They were there.
Cool.
Some of the Mississippi Choctaws came and I guess they shared some dances and stuff like that. And but yeah, I mean, met a lot of real nice people there.
Yeah.
And,
that's so neat that you did that. I love that. And I'm excited that you've shared some photos with me that I'll be able to share with the listeners.
Yeah, my son, he was the one, my son Alan, he was the one that got into it first. And then the daughter, she wanted to do it too. She was like, they were the Tennessee, or the camp followers.
Okay.
The Tennessee militia.
Yeah.
That's what she was. And of course, he was, I don't think we had enough to put our own regiment, so they kind of assimilated into the other soldiers.
Right. Wow. That's so fascinating. I would love to see that. So does it go on every year?
I don't know. I haven't, I don't know. Maybe. I think they kind of stopped, but we haven't went in the last few years either, so.
Yeah.
But it was really nice. We got to visit New Orleans and stuff like that, so. It's the first time I'd ever been there. And
yeah.
I'm ready to go back.
So interesting. Well, thank you for sharing some fascinating information with us today. Robert, are there any Native causes you'd like for our listeners to consider?
Well, I mean, as far as causes, I really don't have any, but I'm a language warrior, I guess. I want people to learn their language, Chickasaw, Creek, whatever it is. I think we need to do that, and that will help with our sovereignty. Because that's what identifies us as Choctaw from different tribes and stuff like that. So, I mean, if you learn, a word a month, that's better than nothing, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's one of the causes I really stand behind.
I can definitely get behind that. And the classes online through the Choctaw Nation that we were talking about earlier, they run August through May through the Choctaw Nation, and you don't have to be Choctaw to learn it, which is great. And online lessons are free. It's actually pretty relaxed. I usually am in my office and I just have a little lamp on, so it's dark in there except for the light from the lamp, and it's 8 o'clock my time, Central Time, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I kind of see it as my time. It's 1 hour every, or 2 hours total a week. And it's a great chance to also connect with other people. We can't talk to each other online, but we connect on Facebook pages online outside of the actual class. So feel free to go to choctawschool.com/classes, or look for it on my website, nativechoctalk.com, and click on Explore, then Q&A, and Learn to Speak Choctaw. So, Robert, are there any words of wisdom you'd like to share with myself or with our listeners?
Just basically is just our language is going to live forever, So, and that's about all I have for that.
I love that. Well, Yakoke, Robert, and blessings to you and your family.
Well, Rachel, it was nice talking with you, nice meeting you and stuff like that. So
absolutely.
Maybe you'll have me on again. I don't know.
Absolutely. I'll be here.
Okay.
Thanks again.
Potential is everywhere in the Choctaw people. It's in our schools and students. It's in our small businesses and entrepreneurs. Potential is in our lifestyle and health. It's in our culture and heritage. Passion and commitment is in our blood. Ingenuity and economy are a tradition. And the Choctaw Foundation was founded for this potential, to cultivate minds and hearts, to stimulate ideas and passions, to extend lives and improve health through education, and to preserve and promote the power of our past. The Choctaw Foundation, meeting the potential of the Choctaw people.
Thanks for listening to Native Chalk Talk. Be sure to join our community on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Simply search for Native Chalk Talk. That's Native, CHOCTALK. And check us out at nativechalktalk.com. Stay tuned for the next episode. You're going to love it. Yakoke. Thank you, my friends.